was like, wait, what are we doing?
Why are we here? What's it all about?
In 2025, the unthinkable happened. The king of streaming, the company that once rewrote the rules of television, suddenly found itself on trial. Not in a courtroom, but in the court of public opinion, where one tweet can erase billions and a hashtag can shape the future of an empire. Netflix had survived competitors, scandals, even global recessions. It had been called the future of entertainment, the blueprint everyone else copied. But this time, something was different. This time, the threat wasn't another studio or rival tech giant. It was a storm of perception, an idea spreading faster than facts. The world had grown used to outrage, and when outrage meets a platform built on attention, it becomes explosive. It started small, a headline here, a heated post there, but soon it spiraled into something no one at Netflix could control. What began as a cultural debate over representation turned into a full-blown economic earthquake. Investors panicked, advertisers hesitated, and audiences split into two warring tribes, one defending the company's creative freedom, the other demanding accountability for what they saw as a social agenda disguised as entertainment. But beneath the noise was a deeper question. When did Netflix, the champion of stories, become the story? For years, it had been the disruptor, the rule breaker, the platform that gave the world Stranger Things, The Crown, and Squid Game, a place where creativity felt untouchable. Yet in the digital age, no empire stays untouchable for long. All it takes is one spark, one tweet, one billionaire with a smartphone and a mission. Because in 2025, that spark arrived. And it didn't just rattle Netflix, it set the entire streaming world on fire. Me too. The spark came from a show almost nobody expected to matter. Dead End, Paranormal Park wasn't a blockbuster. It wasn't a franchise. It was a quirky animated series about ghosts, friendship, and identity. But in the summer of 2025, it became the center of a cultural earthquake. The series featured a teenage protagonist who happened to be transgender, a choice celebrated by many for its authenticity and courage. Fans praised the show for its heart, its humor, and the fact that it didn't treat identity as a gimmick but as part of the character's truth. For some, it was progress. For others, it was provocation. Almost overnight, conservative commentators began framing it as proof of something bigger, what they called Netflix's ideological shift. Hashtags accusing the company of pushing agendas on kids started trending. News outlets picked up the noise. YouTubers dissected every scene, claiming it was part of a cultural takeover disguised as children's entertainment. Inside Netflix, executives dismissed the chatter as a minor controversy, the kind that blows over in a week. But outside, the narrative was building. Each post, each video, each talking point added fuel to a fire that hadn't yet found its oxygen. And then it did. That oxygen came in the form of a single tweet from the most followed man on Earth. Elon Musk, never one to sit quietly on the sidelines, entered the conversation. With just a few words, cancel Netflix for the health of your kids, he transformed an online argument into a global movement. It wasn't just a post, it was a signal flare. Millions saw it, shared it, argued about it. Within hours, conservative influencers echoed the call. Parents reposted the message, adding personal outrage. Memes exploded across timelines. And in the noise of 1,000 voices, one truth became clear. This wasn't about one show anymore. It was about what Netflix represented. To Musk's followers, it was a stand against corporate. To others, it was a dangerous attack on creative freedom. To Wall Street, it was a problem. Because when Musk speaks, markets listen. And as his post hit every corner of the internet, the tremors began to spread from social media to trading floors. Netflix's image, once a symbol of innovation, was starting to look like a liability. The irony? Inside Netflix headquarters, they still didn't realize the size of the wave that was forming. But they would soon, because the moment that tweet went viral, the stock market started to shatter, and that's when the panic truly began. Markets move on emotion, not explanation, and Musk knows exactly how to trigger both. Within hours of his boycott post, the phrase "cancel Netflix" hit trending lists across multiple countries. Clips of him laughing during interviews resurfaced with captions like, "Musk was right. It wasn't a campaign. It was a contagion." By midday, Netflix's stock chart looked like a ski slope. Billions in market value evaporated in less than a trading day. Analysts called it an overreaction, but the damage was done. Investors hate uncertainty, and Musk had just created the biggest question mark Netflix had faced in years. The company's communications team scrambled to draft statements. Should they respond, ignore it, apologize? Every path looked dangerous. If they stayed silent, it looked like guilt. If they spoke up, they'd risk amplifying Musk's message. Meanwhile, in trading rooms and on social media dashboards, the narrative was writing itself. Netflix is out of touch. Netflix is losing control. Netflix is next. Inside headquarters, emergency meetings began before the market even closed. Teams pored over subscription data, and what they saw made stomachs drop. Cancellations spiking across U.S. regions, particularly among family accounts. It wasn't catastrophic yet, but it was accelerating. Musk hadn't just created a PR problem, he'd triggered a movement. Every tweet, meme, and viral viral post acted like a vote of no confidence. And here's the part few people saw. Advertisers were watching too. They weren't reacting publicly yet, but internally, emails were already circulating. Should we pause ad placements? Do we want our brand on this platform right now? The fear was contagious. By the time Netflix's CEO, Ted Sarandos, got his end-of-day report, billions were gone. The company's reputation, built over a decade, was being questioned in real time. The platform that once controlled the narrative had lost control of its own. The tweet had done what no competitor could, make Netflix look vulnerable. And inside those glass offices, the realization hit hard. This wasn't just a stock slide. It was the start of a cultural freefall. The war for Netflix's survival had officially begun. The markets don't wait for explanations. They respond to fear. And when fear meets a billion-dollar brand, the results are savage. By the morning after Musk's post, Netflix stock had fallen another 8%. On paper, that's a number. But in real life, it meant billions erased, bonuses frozen, investors demanding answers, and a company that once looked untouchable, now staring into the mirror of public doubt. Financial news networks ran with it immediately. Screens flashed "Netflix in crisis" in bold red banners. Commentators debated whether this was just another Musk stunt or something bigger, a signal that even the streaming giants weren't immune to public backlash. Behind the scenes, it was chaos. In Netflix's Los Angeles headquarters, executives were glued to dashboards, watching the subscriber count tick down like a clock. Every refresh brought worse numbers. Analysts couldn't even agree on what was happening. Some blamed the economy. Others pointed straight at Musk. But inside the company, nobody wanted to say it out loud. That one man's tweet had just cost them billions. Ted Sarandos, Netflix's CEO and the man who'd built his legacy on calm confidence, was furious. He demanded answers. Why weren't they prepared for this? Why had nobody seen it coming? According to one insider, the atmosphere was suffocating. People who had spent years working under Sarandos' steady leadership suddenly found themselves tiptoeing around his temper. Because for Sarandos, this wasn't just a financial hit, it was personal. His empire was falling. His vision questioned. His leadership doubted. Meanwhile, the internet was on fire. Memes of Musk buying Netflix to delete it trended. Hashtags like #WokeFlix and #MuskWasRight surged to the top of trending lists. Late-night shows joined in, turning the situation into comedy fodder. Every joke, every tweet, every headline pushed the narrative further away from Netflix's control. And while the company scrambled to craft a statement, investors were already moving their money elsewhere. Competitors like Disney and Amazon's Prime Video saw minor bumps in their own stock prices, a sign that the market was shifting allegiance. To make things worse, major outlets began reporting rumors, unverified but irresistible, that internal resignations were happening at Netflix, that executives were split on how to handle the situation, that Sarandos himself was losing faith in his communications team. Whether true or not, perception was reality. By the end of that week, Netflix's valuation had dropped by nearly $30 billion. In just a few days, the streaming titan had gone from king to cautionary tale. But inside the boardroom, the panic wasn't just about money, it was about survival. Because the people who built Netflix's empire were starting to realize something horrifying. They weren't fighting a PR crisis. They were fighting Elon Musk's influence. And that's a battle no one knows how to win. Imagine the scene, a sleek, glass-walled conference room in Los Angeles. It's late, the air is thick with tension. Ted Sarandos sits at the head of the table, surrounded by a dozen of his most trusted executives. The room is silent except for the hum of a projector displaying the latest cancellation numbers. They're bad, worse than anyone expected. Sarandos breaks the silence. How did this happen? His voice is calm at first, then sharper. We've been made into the villain of culture, and it's costing us billions. Nobody answers. Netflix, the company that once prided itself on being ahead of every curve, suddenly found itself chasing a narrative it didn't control. The communications team had proposed 3 plans. Stay quiet, hope the storm passes. Go on the offensive, defend their creative choices, and condemn online hate. Strategic retreat, quietly shelve projects that fuel controversy and reset the brand. None of the options looked good. The first made them look weak. The second risked feeding the fire. The third went against everything Netflix claimed to stand for. While the executives debated, Musk was still tweeting, still memeing, still winning the internet. His followers roasted Netflix's silence, calling it proof of guilt. YouTubers made hour-long breakdowns about the fall of woke media. Cable news filled airtime with panel debates about whether Netflix had lost touch with America. The company had become the centerpiece of a culture war that no PR team could spin away. Internally, the fear was spreading. Junior employees whispered about layoffs. Content teams froze new pitches, unsure what kind of projects would be safe. Even Netflix's social media team, normally witty and quick, went dark, afraid of saying anything that could be twisted out of context. By week 2, advertisers started asking questions, not publicly, but in quiet phone calls and carefully worded emails. What's your plan to stabilize? Are our campaigns still safe to run? The cracks were spreading from public perception into the core of Netflix's revenue stream. Sarandos, usually composed and calculating, was described by one insider as visibly breaking. He slammed a fist on the table during a meeting, demanding an explanation for why the company had no crisis roadmap. Another executive tried to calm him, only to be cut off mid-sentence. We're supposed to be storytellers, Sarandos snapped, and we've lost control of our own story. That line would later leak to the press and become the headline of the week, and that's when the panic became something else. Insult. The empire that once made Hollywood tremble was now the punchline of late-night monologues. logs. The narrative had slipped completely out of Netflix's hands, and every attempt to take it back only fed the beast. But as Netflix fought to stop the fall, a new wave of trouble was already building, one that would come not from the inside but from the outside world. Because Hollywood had been watching the fall, and now it was ready to move in for the strike. Hollywood loves a winner, and for nearly 2 decades, Netflix was the biggest winner in town, the place every actor, writer, and director dreamed of landing. But when the Musk cancel exploded, that dream started to look dangerous. At first, nobody wanted to admit it. Publicly, stars kept smiling, still promoting their Netflix projects, still showing up to premieres. Privately, phones were buzzing. Agents called clients late at night, whispering the same question: should we be worried? Because in Hollywood, perception is currency. And suddenly, Netflix's currency was losing value fast. Rival studios could smell it. Disney's PR teams began pitching themselves as the balanced home for family entertainment. Amazon quietly reached out to creators whose Netflix shows had been delayed, offering better budgets, fees, and faster greenlights. Apple TV Plus dropped carefully timed leaks about its creator-friendly policies. Everyone wanted a piece of the panic. Even A-list talent started hedging their bets. A director mid-deal with Netflix quietly called his agent, asking if the ink could be paused. An actress promoting a new series dodged questions on live TV when a reporter asked if she agreed with Musk. Her awkward hesitation, barely 3 seconds, was clipped, posted on TikTok, and viewed 5 million times in a day. Those clips hurt more than bad reviews. They told audiences that even insiders were uneasy. For Netflix, the betrayal stung. These were the same stars who toasted champagne at their premieres, who'd thanked the platform for changing the game. Now, the same industry that Netflix had empowered was backing away, slow and silent, and the damage didn't stop there. Writers and producers began to wonder whether developing for Netflix was worth the risk. Some feared their projects would be labeled controversial before they even premiered. Others just wanted distance from the chaos. Every unanswered call, every postponed meeting became another quiet vote of no confidence. By the third week of the crisis, Netflix was no longer the industry's golden child. It was radioactive. But if losing Hollywood's loyalty was painful, what came next was worse. Because the moment advertisers got scared, the countdown to financial disaster began. Most viewers never think about the ads between their shows, but for Netflix, those 30-second slots had become a lifeline. After years of relying solely on subscriptions, the company's ad-supported tier was finally turning a profit. Then the boycott hit, and the lifeline started to fray. When the words "woke Netflix" began trending alongside Elon Musk's name, brand managers panicked. Corporate advertisers live in fear of guilt by association. If their logo shows up next to controversy, the backlash can spread overnight. And so, behind closed doors, the calls began. First, it was a few cautious questions. Just checking, what's your policy for ad placement? Then, the pauses. We'll hold off this quarter until things settle. By the end of the week, entire campaigns vanished from the dashboard. To the public, nothing seemed different. The shows still streamed, the app still worked, but inside Netflix's revenue sheets, the numbers were free-falling. The irony was cruel. The company that once bragged about being ad-free had finally embraced advertisers, only to scare them away. Executives tried damage control. They scheduled emergency calls with marketing partners, promising that the storm would pass. But the partners had already read the headlines. They'd seen the memes, the trending tags, the screenshots of Musk's posts. They didn't want to risk on being collateral damage in a culture war. Even tech brands, once proud of aligning with bold innovation, began backing out. One high-profile automaker quietly pulled a multi-million-dollar campaign, citing creative adjustments. Translation: they didn't want Musk tweeting about them next. For Netflix's finance team, this was the nightmare scenario. Subscriber losses hurt, but ad losses were worse. They signaled something deeper, that advertisers no longer trusted the platform to protect their image. And once that trust cracks, it rarely comes back. Inside headquarters, Sarandos' frustration turned to disbelief. He'd built a streaming empire that disrupted Hollywood itself. Now, it was being dismantled, tweet by tweet, headline by headline. Every morning brought another chart showing revenue dipping lower. Every afternoon ended with another meeting full of bad news. And still, Musk kept tweeting. Netflix could survive a PR storm. It could even survive a boycott. But losing the confidence of Wall Street, Hollywood, and Madison Avenue all at once, that was something entirely different. The empire was shaking, and the breaking point was only a heartbeat away. By the fourth week, the panic inside Netflix had evolved into something darker: resignation. Everyone knew the numbers by heart now. Billions gone from market value, ad revenue in freefall, cancellations climbing by the hour. What nobody could quantify was morale. Ted Sarandos had once been the calm center of every storm. Not this time. Insiders say he started arriving before sunrise and leaving long after midnight, pacing hallways that felt emptier by the day. He'd built his identity around control of budgets, stories, the future of streaming. But control was the one thing he no longer had. During one late-night meeting, a staffer tried to lighten the mood with a joke about social media hysteria. Sarandos didn't laugh. He slammed his palm on the table. "Do you think this is funny? Do you understand what's happening? One man with a phone is dismantling 10 years of work." The room fell silent. Reporters started publishing leaks, snippets of those meetings. Anonymous quotes painting Sarandos as furious, desperate, cornered. Whether true or not, they fed the story. The CEO himself had become part of the drama, the latest character in a saga the world couldn't stop watching. And Musk, he wasn't done. Instead of moving on, he doubled down. Every day brought a new jab. Screenshots, sarcastic memes, sly comments about propaganda platforms. Each one landed like a punch, driving engagement, driving clicks, and driving Netflix's stock a little lower. The company's PR department begged Sarandos to issue a heartfelt statement, something to humanize the brand, but he refused. "We don't feed roasts," he said. The problem was that this roast had rockets, cars, satellites, and an audience larger than most countries. By the end of the month, Netflix's internal chat channels were filled with rumors about layoffs. The company cafeteria, once buzzing with talk about shows and premieres, went quiet. Employees whispered words like collapse and rebrand. For the first time, the empire that had changed Hollywood looked genuinely afraid. And yet, in that fear, a question was forming, one that would outlast the scandal itself. Because if Netflix could fall this fast, what did that say about everyone else standing on the same fragile digital ground? When the dust finally settled, Netflix was still standing, but barely. The boycott had slowed, the headlines moved on, and investors began sniffing for bargains in the wreckage. But the scars were everywhere. Declining growth, shaken partnerships, a brand suddenly uncertain of who it was. The Musk-Netflix feud wasn't just a corporate skirmish, it was a cultural mirror. It showed how power had shifted in the modern age, from studios to screens, from CEOs to influencers, from strategy to perception. A single post could move markets faster than any press release. Public opinion had become the new algorithm. Inside Netflix, the mood turned reflective. Some executives wanted to fight back, rebuild the company's identity as a fearless storyteller. Others pushed for safety, more neutral content, fewer risks, fewer reasons to trend. The battle lines weren't social anymore. They were existential. Meanwhile, Hollywood was watching and learning. If Netflix could be dragged to its knees, no platform was safe. Studios began tightening social media policies, vetting talent tweets, scrubbing brand language that might spark outrage. It was damage control disguised as strategy. For Musk, the saga was another victory, a reminder of his ability to bend public attention like gravity. He didn't destroy Netflix, but he proved something more potent. That perception, in the digital age, is the most valuable currency of all. And for audiences, it was a wake-up call. The platforms we trust to entertain us are built on fragile reputations. One viral moment can rewrite years of storytelling. One controversy can decide what we see or never see again. So the question lingers. Can Netflix reclaim its throne, or has the era of streaming kings already ended? The irony couldn't be sharper. The company that once disrupted Hollywood now finds itself disrupted, not by a rival, not by innovation, but by the uncontrollable power of the crowd. Netflix is still here. The logo still flashes red against black. The shows still autoplay. The world still watches. But behind every frame lies the memory of a month when a single tweet nearly toppled an empire. And maybe when future historians look back on the age of streaming, they'll remember this not just as a scandal, but as the moment entertainment itself learned a savage truth. In the attention economy, whoever controls the narrative controls everything.